We were pretty famous back in high school. Trust us.
Had a whole future ahead of us, but now we suck.
All that potential now is flowing in the aqueducts.
Through the sands of time, many did forget.
But now our time has come to resurrect. But a podcast?
Sad I know, but can you blame us?
We are desperate to be much more than high school famous.
Hey, I've got something to say.
I've clammed up immediately.
Hey, I've got something to say.
Oh.
Are you ready for my big thing to say?
Yeah.
Welcome to High School Famous. This unilingual podcast will never be translated into any other language. Comprende, Kimo Sabe?
What?
Should do it. Oh. That means, do you understand, my friend?
You immediately went back on your word. You immediately translated it to English.
You're right. Now, but I didn't translate the podcast into English from another language. Nor did I translate the podcast into another language.
From English?
I just translated some of those words I said.
So basically you're saying that no matter what level of popularity we gain, this podcast will never be translated. So nobody's going to go over it and redub it into another language for other people in other countries to listen to.
I suppose I did say that. I didn't say something like, we will never translate it for you.
Okay.
But that's not what I said. What I said was it will never be translated. So if anyone, someone could just make me look the fool and go ahead and translate it.
That would be really weird to do that to a podcast. Because that it would be like fake energy involved in trying to redo any jokes or spontaneous moments that happen.
Yeah, translating a podcast doesn't make any sense because if it were a video podcast and you could put subtitles in, that makes sense. But I agree that it doesn't make sense to do any translation because it would be someone else just sort of reading the transcript word for word in their native language. And therefore manufacturing any level of inflection that we naturally express during the recording.
Yeah, it'd be weird it would be especially weird if it was read super, super flat, and then
yes,
and then there would be laughter at the end of an extremely flat piece of dialogue.
Oh, because they would keep our original laughter in. They don't have to translate that.
Well, I suppose.
So
I was just thinking they would even do the laughing, but the laughing would be very bland as well. So just be his penis, ha 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 ha
ha ha. Good joke. We're saying it in English.
Funny joke.
Yeah, they had question inflection to non-question words. All right, I'm going to mark that one off as read. That intro is
successful.
That intro is complete. I can retire it now. It's buried. I'm going to burn it alive. It's going to.
That's the thing is I don't know if you just mark them to keep them around so you know not to repeat anything similar to it later, or otherwise there's really no point in even keeping it.
Well, so the point, yeah, you're right. Once they're read, I could just delete them.
Yeah, unless you wanted to write one where you use you kind of went down the line and just used the first word on the first one and then the second word from the second one and create a whole new intro that would be completely non-cohesive and strange.
Let's try that right now. Hello.
Yeah.
And welcome to High
Yeah, they probably
School.
all start off similar.
Hey, this is sounding way too cohesive. This makes
so
too
far,
much sense.
Hold on.
Your plan fails. Oh, you really want me to go on? Okay.
Yeah, what's next?
The
Yep.
podcast.
Yep, this is still working.
Created by... No, wait a minute. Hold on. Created by... got...
Hi.
raised, pleased, determined, if, under, stands, whose, spoken, found, butter, worth,
Butterworth.
baby safe.
Butterworth baby safe?
I know. Well,
this is the Butterworth baby safe.
So I don't know if I'm supposed to be, with each intro, just reading the first word that follows, the podcast or whatever. Because otherwise, I can't read, the fourth word, and then the fifth word of the next one, and then the sixth word of the next one, because that's too hard to do on the fly. And
on the fly, that's no good. If you'd have to sit and do that.
So I was. Sometimes I would scroll down to one, and I would just pick a word in the middle of the long. 'Cause some of these are longer than others. You know,
This wasn't,
you know what?
This
one
genuine then.
This attempt was clunky.
Yes.
But I think with that being the plan beforehand, I could arrange the words in the order that they belong and then provide you with a very much more streamlined yet also very confusing and nonsensical intro to you all. Maybe that'll be the next intro I do.
Probably won't, but yeah, maybe.
It probably won't. I have another one written for another time. So
There
I'll
you
probably do that one first, and then maybe some others I write after that, and then maybe, you know, down the line, I'll just decide,
Yeah.
you know what, now's the time. Now's the time to make the piece together, you know, the ransom note of intros, if you will. Do you like what I did there? Anyway, you weren't paying attention. So now we're going to move on to...
I was not paying attention for a second. I was reading something.
So now we're going to move on to this week's glorious, highly anticipated dad joke. Are you ready?
I'm here.
Also not paying attention. Okay, I'm just going to keep reading. I'm just going to keep talking, and you're just
I was listening that time. I just said I'm here.
I'm not
here.
a fan.
I'm listening. Dad joke. Let's go.
Here we go. I'm not a fan of national anthems. I just don't really like country music. Cue the turkey gobble.
No. I'm cutting that you said that. I'm going to find a different sound effect to put in for a bad joke, like a wah 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 or some shit.
What would you call that? What would you look for?
I'm retiring the goddamn turkey gobble.
What would you search for if you're trying to find a womp womp womp? Is that from a trumpet?
I can maybe type that. I don't know.
What instrument
Sad trumpet
made that sound?
It's
Is it
probably
a trumpet with that plunger
with
head?
with the muter thing?
Oh, the muter.
I don't know if that's what it's technically called.
Oh, I thought you maybe had based your term off of, you know, some music knowledge.
It's been a long time since I've been in like band. So
Company of a trumpet.
Or
been a while since I've been
in the presence of a trumpet.
The trumpet and I, we don't talk much any longer.
No, I have to stay at least 1,000 feet away from a trumpet.
Yep. All trumpets.
Since the incident.
It's not like there's a specific trumpet.
It's all trumpets.
It's all trumpets.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes, I guess, so this has to be like you have to stay within a certain number of feet away from trumpets knowingly. Like you could have, like a neighbor across, you know, your next door neighbor could have a trumpet and you're unaware of it. You're not at fault or in trouble for.
Like if they bought a trumpet, I wouldn't have to move. Yeah,
you're not violating any terms of the order by someone else happening to bring a trumpet near you. That's not fair.
Right.
What if you get surrounded by trumpet players and they're just all closing in on you?
Similar for you, like you don't have to move if they just decided to build a school across the street.
Yeah, because I am not allowed near new construction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what
kind.
That's what that was.
Yeah. Because I got too obsessed with walls. I just kept asking everybody. Whenever a new building was being put up, all I could talk about was I wanted to find out how many walls they planned on building for their structure. Mm-hmm. And so the city...
So you could know if it was going to be a place of higher learning or not.
Yeah. I mean, this was anything. If they were building some sort of commercial building that could be used for retail stores, I still wanted to find out if it had the potential to become a very successful university or college.
Mm.
So let's say a building is laid out to be, it could be used to for businesses like a bakery and a cell phone store and Batteries Plus, things like that. I still want to know what the potential is for it to become a college at some point down the road, and whether or not that college would be very
prestigious,
highly prestigious, yes, accredited, sought after, desired,
Batteries Plus,
loved, wanted. Yeah. What
interesting poll.
I'm picturing like little chain, or
I was hoping you just name a bunch of like businesses that are no longer like.
Radio Shack,
or Circuit City.
Yeah, Blockbuster Video.
Mervyn's, California.
Mervyn's, the city?
No.
Oh no, was that the name of the store?
It was a store called Mervyn's. Yeah.
But it was called Mervyn's, California?
I think there was Mervyn's, and then there was Mervyn's, California. I think they were it was like a division of it or something.
Oh, Rainbow Foods, all these types of places.
Is Rainbow Foods fully gone now?
I couldn't tell you. I just know that any Rainbow Foods that I knew of are not there anymore. I guess nationwide, I don't know if they're 100%.
Because I believe Rainbow Foods was all still a part of Super Value, which is so many different stores, all within that same thing.
Okay.
You started talking, so I stopped, and then you didn't say anything.
Well, I stopped. I stopped because I was letting you finish.
And then I was trying to let you finish or interject, and then neither one of us said anything.
Yeah. So. See, after so many years of doing this, man, I've learned to avoid us completely just talking over each other all the time. I've become very good at just stopping what I'm saying once I notice that you are continuing or you're not quite finished with your thought. Then I will proceed to respond or give my own thought after that.
I like interrupting each other and fighting over the mic.
No, that's fun in spurts maybe, but if your whole show is that, it's unlistenable.
I do everything in spurts.
Yes, in 3-round bursts.
That's why I'm not allowed around trumpets.
You've got it down to a technique. So whenever you are ready, 3 rounds, pop, 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 and there's no more to speak
and
of.
Most of the time, people don't know I'm even doing it.
Right.
If I'm doing it right, you don't know I'm doing it.
You don't know. Nope. If you're doing it right,
yep.
It's completely silent.
Silent, and
it's
you won't
almost
feel
invisible. Yeah. You've even somehow masked your odor.
When I want to.
Right. Sometimes you want the odor there, but that gives you away, does it not? Or how does that work?
Sometimes you want somebody to know you've been there.
But not while you're there, right? You mean after the fact you want them... Matt was here. I can smell his bursts. So how do you do that? How do you sometimes mask the odor completely and sometimes... You don't want to.
I'm not giving away my secrets.
Of course not. Yes.
Then everybody's going to do it. Then they're not going to know if it was me or not.
That's true. There'll be a lot of copycats out there.
Yeah.
They
don't want any copycat spurters.
No. Copycat spurters. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is strange, but how was your week?
Fast.
It was?
Yeah. I don't think anything like really spectacular or crazy happened, but it's just, I don't know. It seemed like it went by really quick. I'm actually literally at this point trying to think of if anything interesting actually happened. I think the only thing I really did this week was I finished the second half of the season 4 of You, which
What's
I don't know if you've watched that.
No,
it's on Netflix.
Okay. Did
Check
you
it
tell
out.
me about it already?
I've probably told you about it before. It's a pretty crazy show. I think you'd enjoy it. It's interesting, but you can binge it.
That's what Netflix.
Yeah, we're in a binge society.
Yep.
But yeah, you might enjoy it. It's a pretty interesting show. It's pretty crazy at times.
So when does it go from binge watching to like being on a Netflix bender?
I think when you've binge watched like continuously, like you're done binge watching one thing and you immediately start binge watching the next thing. Don't take any breaks.
Minimum duration, like 2 days, like a
bender?
2-day Netflix bender.
Yeah, I suppose if you like spent like you're like I'm not doing shit this weekend. I'm just gonna go home and just binge watch Netflix for the whole weekend. And you literally the only time you get off your couch is to like get some food or use the bathroom or like not even go to bed. Like you literally just like pass out on the couch and then you figure out where you left off and replay whatever you missed. That could be a bender.
Okay, here's a question. And I don't know how often this happens, so I can't muster up any kind of educated guess. How long do you have to be watching Netflix for before that thing pops up that says like, "Are you still watching?"
Probably like a couple hours maybe.
Because
of just autoplay.
Yeah, because a bender could if we were going to try to really narrow down and define the parameters of what makes a Netflix bender, like the minimum system requirements, we would have to have a count, like "Are you still watching?" count that you have to get through. You know, so if it happens every 2 hours, for example, and we're saying that 2 days, then we're looking at roughly 24 times.
Well, you can avoid those things coming up. If you're on a real bender, you'll avoid the "Are you still watching?" thing coming up. Because during the credits of a show, if that little thing that says "play next episode" starts counting down, if you click your button to do it faster, then it's going to know that you're it's going to kind of restart that cycle of you're definitely watching.
So it's
so you can
only
avoid that thing popping up.
So it's only if there's no interaction with the interface.
Yeah.
You just let it autoplay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't select a new show. You don't skip the intro. You don't skip to the credit from the end credits to the next episode. None of that stuff. It'll then trigger the "Are you still watching?"
Yeah, because it'll just think like, okay, this person either fell asleep or maybe they died.
They died.
Yeah, so we don't want to keep playing it because we don't want dead people watching our shows.
Well, we just want them to keep their
off.
subscription. All we care about is they keep their subscription.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them to watch anything because you're right. That throws off the metrics and
yep,
things
and then
like
we
that.
won't know what shows to cancel that people are, if it shows that they're watching it, even though they're really not, then we're not going to cancel this show that sucks.
Right. Then just Murder, She Wrote is going to play forever.
That's definitely not on the air anymore.
Right, but is it on Netflix?
I'm talking, well, that's
nothing
fine.
Nothing on Netflix
once
is
Netflix
on the air.
No. So I'm talking about shows getting canceled. I'm talking about Netflix originals.
Shows, I see.
Because all the other shows that they put up there, they pay whatever and just put it up there for whatever amount of time it's going to be up. So they've already spent their money on Murder, She Wrote. It's going to be up for whatever period of time they own it for.
That's true.
If not indefinitely.
But do you think there's a point where if a show is watched so much on Netflix that they're like, you know what, our time that we paid for to keep this show on Netflix is coming up, but there's so many people that are still watching it so much, let's re-up?
Yeah, they do that sometimes.
Yeah. So,
but then there's other shows too that are very super popular on Netflix that they still will take off because, like The Office was still constantly getting views, and they pulled The Office off of Netflix.
Do you think it just became too expensive? Or they're like, yeah, look, we get it. Everyone watches The Office all the time.
Probably just things run their course. I'm sure.
Is Friends on Netflix?
It was. I'm not sure if it still is.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't. These sort of, I mean, there's shows like that. The Office, everyone still talks about and watches. Friends, everyone still talks about and watches. To probably a lesser extent, Parks and Rec, people still watch a lot.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other really like super huge successful sitcoms that have been done for quite a while, but still get watched, like have a really high replay value.
Frasier, probably. Seinfeld.
You think so? I have a feeling like Frasier.
People who are into Frasier were into Frasier, like hard.
But that's true. Same thing with Seinfeld, but I think that their overall appeal wasn't as broad as, say, a Friends or The Office.
Yeah.
I think they're more widely popular than something like Frasier. So I think that, yes, Frasier and Seinfeld have their very like devoted niche fans, but I wonder if they are just, I think that Frasier and Seinfeld have kind of fallen away out of, the public mindset. Like they're not really talked about anymore as much. You still hear people talk about The Office and Friends a lot.
Yeah, they're still I would say they're still a bit newer, but I don't remember when Frasier ran to, like, what was the time period of Frasier?
That
was it during the same time as Friends?
I think it was close. I think Frasier might have
roughly the same time period.
Frasier might have started a little bit before Friends, but I guess I'm not the best gauge of that.
Yeah, it wasn't a show I really ever watched. I don't know if I could honestly say I watched a full episode of Frasier.
Oh, I watched plenty. I think Frasier maybe is in the same boat as something like News Radio. News Radio probably wasn't quite as popular as Frasier was, but it's that, like, the people who love it just really love it. Whereas something like Friends is like so many people either really love it or there are plenty of people that like kind of like it.
Right.
I don't know if there's any people that are sort of like lukewarm on News Radio or Frasier. It's like you either like it or you don't.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah, I don't know where else my brain's going to go on that right now.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much more we can explore this this topic of conversation. Some shows people like, some shows not so much.
This is true.
Yeah. It's one of the
like
only
most things in life.
Yeah, it's one of the only like constants.
I mean, there's a lot of constants, but
that's one of the only
What do you
ones.
mean by that?
What?
What, the fact that people will or won't like a show is a constant?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
There's always going to be shows, and there's always going to be people that like those shows, and there's always going to be people that dislike those shows. That's never going to go
That's
away.
what I hate about like like recently I've caught a few shows where I'm just like, I want to see where this is going to go. And then it's like canceled. I'm like, I hate that so much when something new and you're kind of into it, or you at least like, okay, maybe the first season was a little rough, but I see where they could potentially go with this.
Yeah.
I want to see like how it might develop. And then next thing you know, nope, it's canceled.
I think there's a lot.
Too bad. Bye.
Yeah, I think shows don't get nearly as much of a chance to sort of find their footing that they used to.
It's just, this didn't make enough money or not enough people watched it, so bye.
Yeah.
Sometimes
even if they're seemingly doing really well, sometimes they still just get axed like abruptly out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with Netflix, if they're like, okay, the first week this show was #1, everybody was fucking watching it, which obviously once they release something new that's kind of anticipated, it's going to do amazingly well right off the bat. Right. But then it's like, it really dropped off after the second week or third week. And it's like, naturally it's going to do that. So especially with the binge watch culture that we're in is, you're going to get a shit ton of views in the first week. But guess what? Now all those people are done watching it.
So the gauge so much might not be, well, how many people are watching this? It's how many less people are watching it.
Yeah,
they did when it
and
first
then it immediately
dropped.
is just like, oh well, it's not doing as well now, so boom, canceled. Because that was like, here's an example, and this wasn't necessarily a great show, but the live action Cowboy Bebop, when it first came out, it was just everybody's watching it, and then it fell off really quickly. Unfortunately, part of the fall off of it was that they just kind of didn't execute it super well.
Yeah,
but it was still kind of interesting enough. Like I started watching it like a few months ago finally, because I just didn't touch it at all. And unfortunately for me, like, and I think for a lot of people, the storyline just was kind of going off the rails from, like, they were doing something so different than what the anime was that it was kind of off-putting for like diehard anime version fans. So for me, that kind of made it unappealing to watch, and that's probably what the ultimate downfall of it all was. But at the same time, I was like, if they would have given them a chance to do a second season of it, they probably could have corrected a lot of that stuff and made it better. So I'm like, so then that was the other thing too, is like knowing that it was completely and utterly canceled. After I watched the first like 3 episodes, I'm just like, I don't need to finish this because I know there's not going to be any more, and I'm kind of getting a little butthurt at a lot of the changes they've made. So I'm just like, no, I'm good.
Well, let me ask this. So there's already an animated anime version of this movie? Or was it a show or a movie?
So Cowboy Bebop was an anime from the late 90s.
Okay, but again, was it a show or a movie?
It was a show.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an anime series.
Okay. So if that already exists.
There was also a movie though that took place within the span of the series.
Gotcha. So this already exists. What would be the appeal of the exact same story being done just in live action? What would be the appeal to that?
But
because guaranteed you could do so many things with CGI these days, but there's just some things that animation is going to have over live action,
right?
No matter what.
It was mainly the drastic changes they made. So it's something you're never going to watch. So I can basically do spoilers at this point. But so spoiler warning of anybody who gives a shit at this point. But
he's a cowboy.
The main antagonist of the anime is this guy called Vicious. It's like a code name, and he was a guy that the main character.
Not a birth name. Okay.
No, there was. I mean, it's anime. Anything can be a birth name.
Oh, I suppose.
So the main character was a part of this syndicate that was like a crime syndicate. He basically defected. This dude Vicious is still in the syndicate, and he's kind of the main antagonist of the show. And
Who defected?
Spike, the main character of the anime, defected from the syndicate. To basically, long story short of it,
and Vicious remaining.
Vicious is still in the syndicate, and then he, throughout the series, Vicious basically takes over the syndicate, and he's the bad guy. He's the main baddie throughout the show. Even though the main characters are bounty hunters, so the show kind of takes place of them. Like, so each episode they're kind of hunting down a different villain.
Sure.
But the main villain for the whole story is this Vicious guy. Well,
And
when they
Spike
started
and
doing
Vicious were childhood friends, and now they are forced to be enemies.
roughly that's kind of that idea. But
kind of figured something like that was there.
the live action, it's kind of, it's feeling it's going to kind of stay along those lines of like, okay, Vicious is the bad guy. He's taking over the syndicate, all this stuff. And then it also in the anime version, there's this woman, Julia, who is in love with, or Spike and Julia are in love, but Julia, you think Julia gets killed, but it turns out later you find out she's not really dead. In the live action, Julia's just alive. There's no question about whether or not she's alive.
Bummer.
And then she ends up she's married to Vicious in the live action. And then Vicious ends up being this pussy and Julia ends up kicking his ass and now she's the villain. And at that point I was just like, I'm fucking done. I'm like, why? Why would they completely changed her character altogether? And it kind of changes the whole reasoning of why Spike was defected and all this stuff. I'm just like, this is too much.
So
I lost my interest super quick.
So they have to do, whenever they're adapting some property that already exists and has a loyal fan base like that, you have to think, what are we trying to do? Are we just trying to appease the existing Cowboy Bebop fans? Or are we trying to introduce the concept of this Cowboy Bebop to a whole bunch of new people?
Right.
Can you?
You're kind of trying, but you're trying to walk that fine line of you want to do both, obviously, because if you piss off the diehard fans, you lose most of your audience right off the bat.
So here's the question: are you able to remove your connection or attachment or whatever to the events of the anime and just see what they're doing with? I guess I'm trying to ask is: are you able to sort of try and not compare the two and just go, okay, let's see what they're doing with this live action version. Is it in itself a contained, not having any relation to the anime version? Is it within itself? Was it an interesting story that they were doing?
Personally, to me, not really, I guess. But again, it's hard to not have a biased opinion of it.
Yeah,
in my shoes, because.
Do you think if someone like me was to start watching the live action version, would I be drawn to finish it, or is it something like that no one can really enjoy?
No, I think I think people could definitely enjoy it. I don't know if you would. I think because you and I kind of have similar logical brains and see things stupid little minute things sometimes that just annoy the shit out of us.
Sometimes
I think there's a lot of it that you wouldn't even like. And the thing is the way it's filmed, some of it just kind of looks shitty. Some of it looks really good and well done. And other parts of it looks like they just super cut corners on stuff. And things don't blend, shots you can tell oh, this background's not really there. It's kind of obvious bad blending kind of stuff sometimes. And
sure.
So I don't know. I feel like the story could have been interesting if they wanted to make it kind of a little different. But I feel like even if they would have decided they wanted to do a shot-for-shot remake of the show, but as live action, I feel like that would have done better. And I feel like diehard fans would have actually still enjoyed that, because then it's oh, we can watch our favorite show. It's the same story, but we can kind of watch it two different ways and see how this is what it would look like if it was real people versus animation. Because there's obviously certain limitations of things you would have to kind of do differently to still get kind of the same idea. But
yeah, that's hard. Anime characters are so exaggerated and caricature. They're very cartoon character. They're
certain animes.
Sure, you're right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I think you're always going to have some difficulty recreating as truly as you can the look of an anime character in live action. Right. It's difficult.
Yeah, because there's another example of a show that I was actually disappointed that got canceled because it just kind of got screwed over with network shit and COVID.
Global warming.
No, COVID ended up kind of killing this show.
Oh,
So it was a show called Why the Last Man, which is based off of a comic book that I really enjoyed.
okay.
And it's basically about the last man on Earth because a virus, spoilers, a virus wipes out every male mammal on Earth, except
I wonder why at that time that got canceled.
No,
Like,
it had nothing to do with that.
No one wants to watch a show about a virus killing everyone right now. We're not going to continue the show.
Ironically, weird timing. The comic came out many, many years ago.
Right, but the show, I mean, yeah.
But basically, there's this one dude, and he has a pet capuchin monkey. Is that the right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Ross Geller.
Yeah. It was
Like
actually
Friends.
originally it was that same monkey, but then they ended up doing a CGI monkey, which looked okay. It looked okay. It wasn't that bad. But they're the only two, as far as anybody knows, they're the only two males left alive on Earth. And the story is kind of about like trying to figure out why. But that show, so it had been in the works for a long time trying to get that to be a show.
Mm-hmm.
They finally did it, got the first season filmed, then COVID hit, and the network, so everything kind of got put on hiatus for them to like continue on of like to even talk about if they wanted to do a season 2 and stuff. Because I think they wrapped up filming right kind of around the time COVID was hitting and stuff.
Yeah.
So then basically it got to the point where everybody's contracts were coming up, and the network decided they didn't want to pay $3 million to extend everybody's contracts to hold them.
Because they didn't know for how long it would.
To do a second season. So they just let everything go to crap. So then the person who created the show was trying to shop it around to other networks. And then finally, I think just at the end of this last year, they finally said it's completely dead. Like season 2 is never going to happen. I'm just like, this was a show I was super looking forward to watching. Like the first season's pretty good. It follows the comic pretty faithfully.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I read it, so I'm not sure how many differences and how many things they changed, but I was enjoying it and I really wanted to see where it was going to go. And it's just like, fuck, now it's dead. And who knows how long before anybody would ever try to do it again.
I mean, you know, if it's a Batman movie,
it could be tomorrow.
Just give it a year. There's going to be another one coming out.
But
so this is something. So
tough.
you've finished watching the season long before it was decided that it was not going to go on.
Yeah. So right when I finished watching that season, I was like, a lot of times nowadays, I just immediately look up, are they even in talks of doing a season 2, or is there going to be another season? Because some stuff gets picked up immediately for a second season. Other stuff, you know, they're like, well, we're going to see how it does, and then we'll see if it'll pick up for another season. So as soon as I got done watching it, I started looking stuff up, and they're like, oh, contract issues, blah blah blah, this and that. Like, we're not sure. And then I was kind of kept checking back every once in a while to see if they had picked up another network. And then I think the last time I checked, which was like a few weeks ago, they finally said like, nope, it's fully dead now. We couldn't get another network to pick it up. And I was like, man,
that stinks.
What a bummer. Yeah. And then I just watched the Netflix show called Space Force. It's a Steve Carell show.
Steve Carell. I know I might have watched the first episode of that.
Where he's like a 4-star general. He gets promoted to being a 4-star general, and then they make him in charge of the new division of the military called Space Force.
Yes.
And so not the greatest show in the world, but it was still entertaining enough. Like John Malkovich is awesome in it. He was super entertaining in it.
Yeah,
and
I'm trying to recall what, because I know I watched the first episode, and I remember not being super interested in going on.
Yeah, it's a slow burn for sure. It's decent. It's not, and I can kind of understand why it didn't get picked up for a third season. Like it's dead in the water too. It was entertaining enough that I watched it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the second season, I'm like, you know, if they had a third, I'd probably watch it. Like, it's not awful. It's keeping my attention. It's got some funny moments. There's definitely some decent stuff in it. It's definitely not a like laughing myself to tears show, but it's clever. It's got a lot of good. It's got a decent subtle humor. It's got a few like in your face humor moments, and it's got some like kind of genuine sweet moments in it as well. So I'm just like, it was all right. But then it's like, well, that's done. I watched all of that, and I will never see any more of it. So it's just like, I keep picking shows that just are getting canceled. So if you have a show that you love, don't tell me about it. I'm going to watch it. It'll get canceled.
Oh, you're cursed.
I got
the curse.
Yeah, because I watched the first season of Willow, and that there's nothing saying it. They still don't know if that's going to have a season 2 yet, as far as when I last looked.
So I'm not surprised at all that you watched that. Was that meant to be a continuation from the movie?
Yeah. So it's 20 years later.
Okay, and someone's kid is someone who was a child in the original is now an adult, and it's probably their children or something, right?
Sort of. Not really, but well,
sort of.
You're not completely off base.
And the two enemies
Willow
were childhood
spoilers.
friends.
All right, this whole episode is me just talking to Sean about shows I've watched.
I don't need you to tell me about Willow. Just there's no point. Don't worry about it.
All right, but well, yeah, you're not super far off. It's
that's just very common lately, where it's like they do a reboot of something where only it's now the children of the original characters that are the main characters of the reboot.
Yeah, but the thing that makes it different, I'm not going to go into super detail about it, but in the original Willow movie, there's a baby that's born at the beginning, and that baby is prophesied to basically be the one that will destroy the evil wizardess lady in the movie.
Okay.
And so now she's grown up, but she's been kind of hidden from that of her life, so she didn't actually know that she was that person.
Oh.
And then she finds out throughout the series, like, oh, I'm that person. Shit. And they have to go and on a quest to go save the son of Val Kilmer's character from the movie, because he gets kidnapped. And so that's kind of that, and it's kind of like a coming of age thing or whatever. Then they meet up and find Willow, and Willow goes on the journey with them and stuff. So yeah, you're not far off, but it's not just a straight. Yeah, it's not quite the same of just like the movie ended and everything's fine, and then it's like, oh well, let's see what their kids are up to. It's more of like, let's see what the baby now has to actually fulfill her prophecy. Now she's old enough that the prophecy is going to actually take place.
That's
so
a little
kind of a continuation.
Better. So like, I know like, what they do, they did another Mary Poppins, and that was the same thing. It's like children of the kids that were in the original Mary Poppins are now the ones that are going on an adventure with Mary Poppins.
The new Christmas Story.
Is that too? I don't know.
A Christmas Story movie. You remember that?
Well, I know
like
what the
little Ralphie, you're going to shoot your eye out kid.
Yeah.
Story.
So,
yeah, there was a new one that just came out this last Christmas that was him as an adult.
No, I didn't know that there was another one of those. So I don't know.
Yeah, it just happened.
So have you seen that Knives Out movie?
No, I heard Knives Out is great, and then I heard Glass Onion is great as well, and I haven't watched either.
I haven't watched Glass Onion yet, but I did see Knives Out, and I also just recently started watching his show called Poker Face with Natasha Lyonne, because I think I really like her as an actress, and I liked Knives Out, so I thought, well, this could be fun too. Again, I haven't seen Glass Onion. I know that the connection between Knives Out and Glass Onion are just the detective character played by who's the guy who's the most recent Bond? I forget his name already.
Yeah,
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. For some reason, I started saying Daniel Craig, and I thought that was not right. No,
it's right. Daniel Craig. So I guess he's the only like connective tissue between the two movies. It's just a completely different story.
Because I had heard, I'm like, do I need to see Knives Out to watch Glass Onion? And somebody said no.
Yeah, I think it's just a whole new cast, whole new murder mystery, and then Daniel Craig's character is the one who's trying to solve it, just like he was in the first movie.
That'd be kind of interesting. Of just like it's kind of like a Bond type thing where you're following the character through all these different adventures he goes through, but now you're just following this detective character into all these cases that he goes to.
And it's not quite the same as True Detective, because that was completely different cast each season. It wasn't even the same detective or detectives or people trying to solve this. Everything was different.
And it's not like American Horror Story where it's the same cast, but it's a completely different story every time.
That's a cool idea. I've never watched that, but that would be interesting.
I haven't
to
either.
see.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Poker Face so far has been all right. I know that I guess Rian Johnson, the writer director who he did the Star Wars movie that everyone hated, The Last Jedi. But I guess he's like, he loves that whodunit murder mystery type of a genre, and so he's got a lot of history with it, and so it's kind of like a passion project for him more so.
Big Agatha Christie fan.
Yeah, so I do notice in this Poker Face show, because every episode is kind of like murder of the episode,
right?
And there's some sort of like Columbo-esque moments where it's like, oh yeah, there's actually just one more thing I forgot to mention, and she, reveals some piece of evidence or something that anyway. But
that was probably not previously like mentioned throughout the whole episode. It's just something she had in her back pocket the whole time. Right.
But I did notice a through line, which is that, and again, this might be apparent or evident in, I should say present in Glass Onion. It might not. But Rian Johnson, at least when writing these types of stories, he likes to have some sort of weird, I would call it like a writing crutch to make things a little bit easier for someone to solve something.
Right.
Because in the movie, there's a female character, and this is not a big spoiler because I think she mentions this like very early on. If she tells a lie, she will throw up.
Okay.
So very easy to tell if this person's lying or not, right? If she throws up, that means she's not telling the truth, and something's up here. The Natasha Lyonne's character in Poker Face, she can tell when someone's lying. It's just this innate ability, her ability to quote unquote read people. And he puts, so what I've noticed with that one movie and this show, he just puts this weird quirk about a character into it that makes things way more easy to figure out.
Right.
And I feel like it's kind of a letdown in that regard. I'm like, that's kind of lazy. Sure, I guess it's kind of interesting maybe or fun to
I mean, there's definitely people that have that you can learn how to like read people like that. So you can tell if like weird things are happening, like, okay, they might not be being super honest here because there's a lot of body movement tells, or like when people cross their arms, it means a certain thing, or, looks this way, looks that way kind of thing. Or
it would make sense. It'd be more interesting if she were doing that, where it's like, well, I've learned after talking with you that when you do get uncomfortable, you twitch your eye, or like you say, you fold your arms. There's some kind of physical tell. There's none of that here. It's just like, when's your birthday? Lying. Blah. That's true. When did you first fall in love? Blah. That's true. What street were you born on?
She's just a human lie detector.
Yeah. Just blah. No, that's bullshit. Like, she just calls it out. Like,
and then they're like, what?
Yeah. So
you're right.
So I'll finish it. I forget how many episodes are left, but the other point I wanted to make is it's odd because of events that happened in the first episode. She's sort of trying to be off the grid and kind of on the run or on the lam because people are after her. But everywhere she stops to just kind of like hang out for a bit, a murder takes place. And then she gets herself involved in solving it.
If you're on the run, the last thing you want to do is get involved in a local murder, because they're going to be asking you questions or trying to figure out who the hell you are.
Exactly. So she's getting herself involved, which could easily get herself on the news or in the papers.
Yeah.
Who does papers?
They still exist.
Oh, I read the papers and I get the vapors. No, so she gets herself involved, and she's making it that much more likely that she will be featured on some sort of news story.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, she keeps confronting these people that she suspects are committing these murders. And if they are someone who are willing to commit a murder, if you're going to get in their face and call them out on it, there's a good chance they might just kill you too. Because
especially if you're just some person who's randomly came to town.
Right. There's no like,
and now got involved in this case.
Yeah, no one in the town has a history of knowing you. It's not like anyone would notice you really that
if you just disappeared, whatever.
So that kind of took me out a little bit. I'm like, why would she? Yeah. That's not the smart thing at all. I guess maybe she just can't help herself, and even though she's trying to keep a low profile, she's like, can't. These people are doing wrong, and I got to stop them.
Have you watched Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch one?
No, I've not seen any Sherlock Holmes type of story. I didn't watch
Okay.
the Downey Jr. movies. I didn't watch the Will
Well,
Ferrell,
yeah, I've never
John C.
watched
Reilly
those either.
movie.
Yeah, nor would I of those. But the Benedict Cumberbatch series, Sherlock, if you're into this poker face thing and you're kind of like, they're doing this kind of dumb, doing that kind of dumb, you'd probably really like Sherlock because it's pretty well done. Like, you know, because obviously Sherlock Holmes is like the best detective and he can just like read things and see things and do stuff. The way they do it in that show is interesting enough because like he'll just say something about somebody and they'll be like, well, they'll be confused, like, well, how'd you know all that stuff? And then he's Sherlock, so he goes into complete detail of how he figured out all this different stuff. And it like, oh, you know, I realized you had a cat because there's hair on your shirt or whatever. And it like zooms in and shows the hair or like does all this different stuff. And it kind of, he likes to explain himself because he likes to be the smartest person in the room. So he'll go through everything of like showing the person why he knew he was right the entire time.
Which is probably why Robert Downey Jr.
It's a good show.
It's probably why Robert Downey Jr. probably did a good job with those movies, because I could see him confidently strutting around like he, you know, just boasting about and bragging about how he's the smartest one in the room. So
yeah, but I do definitely recommend the Benedict Cumberbatch series Sherlock. I believe it's on Netflix.
All right.
I think each season or series of the show is it's only a few episodes because each episode's like an hour and a half long. So they're like mini movies. So I think, each series is like 2 or 3 episodes or something like that.
And
but they're long.
This was separate from, because wasn't there a show called Watson or something?
Yeah, that
was Lucy Liu or something?
Yeah, that was an American version of it.
So that's not connected to the Cumberbatch stuff.
No, because the person who plays Watson in Sherlock is what's his damn name now? It's a
Paul
different
Giamatti.
British actor that I really enjoy.
British actor.
He was on the British version of The Office, and he played
I've never seen.
You're just going to start yelling anything out.
I've never seen the British version of The Office. So I would
he was the guy who played Bilbo in The Hobbit. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He's a actor I really enjoy.
He passed away a couple years ago. Right?
No, you're probably thinking of the guy who played Bilbo in The Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
I'm talking about the guy who played Bilbo in The Hobbit. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see The Hobbit.
And he was in Black Panther.
Yeah, that guy. He plays. Was it Everett Ross or whatever in the Marvel movies? I think.
Sure, I don't know the character's name.
Yeah, I don't know his real name, but I know who you're talking about now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, Martin Freeman.
Oh, Martin.
I couldn't think of his name, but yeah, Martin Freeman.
Martin.
Yeah, he plays Watson in that, but it's good. I really enjoyed that series quite a bit.
Okay, Watson.
I would actually probably rewatch it, but I'd put it on your list because I think you'd really actually enjoy it quite a bit.
Watson. Not
Watson.
watching.
Watching Sherlock.
Watch Sherlock with
Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin
Cumberbatch.
Yep.
Cumberbatch. Oh man, I don't know. This came out of nowhere. So speaking of hobbits and whatnot.
Okay.
I had tried to show Leo the first Lord of the Rings movie a few years ago, and he was just so bored. And and granted,
it's a slow burn.
It is. Granted, it was also the extended cut, not the theatrical version.
Right.
But either way, he was bored with it, had no interest in returning to it, had no interest whatsoever in watching the sequels. But 2 nights ago, he's like, "Oh, I know something we could watch. It's on Netflix." And so he had me start searching. He was like, "Search this, type blah blah blah," and then I don't know why he just didn't want to just tell me. He wanted it to be like a big surprise or reveal.
Right.
That he wanted to watch The Lord of the Rings. And his reasoning was because this was the shorter version. And we got
about good though.
We got about 20 minutes. I even said to him, I said, I haven't seen the theatrical version in so long. I might not even know. I suppose I haven't watched any of them in so long, but I don't know what is not part of the extended cut and what isn't. Or, I don't know what is extended and what isn't.
You'd probably, as you watch the theatrical ones, you'd probably figure out like, oh, they totally don't have this scene in there at all.
Right. So it might be a bit jarring. But anyway, about 20 or so minutes into it, he's like, "Can we watch something else? This is boring." I said,
But
So-
Two Towers, he's just gotta wait it out, because then he can watch the end fight, and everybody gets excited about the end fight.
well, that's what I said. I said, Leo, the first movie is all just setting up the story and introducing all the characters, and the quest begins. I said the second movie, the quest is already underway, so they just jump right into it, and it's more exciting. And he still had no.
And there's the big battles at the end; those would have probably caught his interest.
Yeah, so I can't convince him yet to watch even the theatrical version of the.
Eventually, he'll get there.
Yeah, he probably will, just on his own time.
I'm interested in watching. I had downloaded it a while ago, but somebody had taken the 3 Hobbit movies and cut out all the extra bullshit that was added in that wasn't in the original stories or in the original book, and made
Peter
one
Jackson,
movie.
He can't make it one movie. He's got to make it 3.
Right. It was no need to be 3 movies. Like, it could have easily been 2 movies, and that still would have been longer than it needed to be. Like, The Hobbit could have been one movie. It could have been like 1 3-hour movie, and you could have got the whole story in there. I think because I think the original 3 was around probably around 9 hours. And I think whoever did the cut, it was like 5 hours or something.
Oh, wow.
When they cut out all that extra
out.
crap that he added in. And it was just like, I eventually would love to watch it. Because I don't think I even ended up seeing all 3 movies. Because I think I got bored with it. I'm just like there's so much in this that doesn't need to be here. Like,
see,
too much.
Without knowing the story, I remember trying to watch the first Hobbit movie, and I got very bored with it.
There's so much in it that's like, ugh.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy was a spectacle, and I had no knowledge of that story either.
Same.
But I loved it, and then just watching this one, I remember thinking, this is just kind of more of the same. It's kind of lost its luster. It does seem like very much of a wash, rinse, repeat type of like, okay, I feel like I watched this already.
I think if it was cut down to the cohesive story that it originally was, as far as the movies, it would be more entertaining. Because I believe The Hobbit was more of a children's story than anything. And the other thing that made the Lord of the Rings movies better in that fact is because each movie was one book of the series. Yeah. It made sense to do each one in its own thing. And even those, there was plenty cut out of them just to make them be able to fit, instead of The Hobbit being extended out to be this longer thing than it originally was.
Because The Hobbit was one book, right? It wasn't.
It was
multiple?
One book. Yeah, it was one short book.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see any reason why I would find myself watching those movies.
I'll look and see if I have the that cut version of it, and I'll try to send it to you somehow. You might be at least interested in watching that versus watching all 3 full movies. If
it's still 5 hours long, I don't think so.
I'm not sure how long it was, but yeah, it was much shorter than all 3 movies put together.
So the night I tried to convince him to watch Two Towers, what we did end up watching, which he also was not excited about, but I was The Burbs, which I have not seen in a very long time. But man,
I watched that
just
a few
fun
years ago.
Movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to make sense. You know, this was the 80s. Stuff didn't have to make sense.
Yeah, it was just a movie about some weird, creepy neighbors.
But there's some detail I caught, which I've never caught before, and you let me know if you know what I'm talking about. It's the scene toward the beginning where, what's the neighbor? Okay, so what's Tom Hanks' character's name? Is his character's name Ray?
Oh.
Okay, so
I'm not going to remember.
Tom Hanks is at his house, and his wife's there, and then that one neighbor is just like eating all the food.
Yeah.
Right? So Carrie Fisher's character, so Tom Hanks' wife, walks by up to the table. She's holding a bowl in her hand, and then she's like reaching for something that's on the table. And as she's reaching for something that's on the table, that neighbor who's just eating everything just reaches his hand in and grabs a few things out of the bowl that she's holding and just puts it in his mouth and starts chewing on it. And he stops what he's saying because he's got this confused look on his face, like, oh, this is interesting. Then the next shot, it's still him talking, but you see her in the background setting the bowl down on the floor for the dog to start eating.
Oh, nice.
Just this little detail that didn't have to be there.
Yeah, I don't think I ever noticed that.
There was nothing spoken about it. It was just a hidden little joke. He just reached in and grabbed some dog food because he's just eating everything in sight. I'm like, I never saw that before, and I love that because I feel like stuff like that just isn't in movies anymore.
Yeah.
These little, everything has to be so like in your face. There's not a lot of things that have like little subtleties that, you know, you have to really be paying attention to catch.
Right.
Not in the realm of like when people specifically plant in Easter eggs that are like a reference to something, you know, like that stuff. This wasn't that. This wasn't like, ooh, I'm a really big fan of, you know, this writer, so I'm going to sneak in one of their book on the bookshelf or something like that. Like, this is like a written joke that's a nonverbal joke, and there's so much other stuff in the scene going on that you probably won't even catch it, at least on the first watch.
Do you know the origin of the term Easter egg? I just found this out either like within the last couple of weeks. I just found this out. I was like reading a post about something.
I do not know.
So how it started was in the movie Rocky Horror Picture Show. As a joke, crew members were just hiding Easter eggs on the set of the movie.
Of course,
just randomly, just as a goof.
Yeah,
and so in certain scenes of the movie, you can see Easter eggs in certain shots that are just hidden throughout. So it kind of became a thing of like, look for all the Easter eggs.
Yeah, and
then now that's just become this thing of, you know, you're finding interesting things hidden throughout scenes of movies.
You know,
so that's how it all started.
I've never seen Rocky Horror Picture Show, but that just bumped itself up for me.
It's such a goofy movie, dude. Like,
I know, it's even better.
I don't know if it's something you'd enjoy, really.
It's another one of those things that just has a huge cult following.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
The people who love it really love it. Like they go to see it once a year, maybe, and they all dress up and, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's a big to do.
Yeah. Like my mom and her friends used to go to the live.
I think I remember
showings of it and stuff. Yeah, like the audience gets involved with the story and stuff, and
yep.
All sorts of stuff. It becomes kind of a performance while the movie's playing because everybody's like playing parts in the aisles of the movie theaters and stuff.
Now I hope that the whole Easter egg discovery was completely organic and not like the makers of the movie going like, you know, just in case you want to find something to look for, we hid Easter eggs throughout this whole movie.
No, I think it literally was just like they were doing it as a goof of just like hiding Easter eggs along the set just to kind of have fun with the people in the scenes. Just
because
be like,
then
they'd see there's another stupid Easter egg sitting in the shot.
And if you're one of those people doing it, you can go home to your family and be like, hey, check this out. I put that Easter egg back there and I did that back there. I did that kind of stuff when I, not like Easter eggs, I guess, but when I very first started working in the studio at Shop, Evine, Shop MUC, whatever you want to call it. Like
that's the first time you've officially mentioned the name of the company you used to work for.
Did I? I don't know.
Yeah. You've always been kind of vague about it.
Yeah, I don't know
now.
how interested people are. I mean, yes, I guess if you know shopping channels, there's really the big three, I guess. And so this is like the third of the three. Anyway, like for one of the Serta shows, I remember because you had those plush Serta sheep.
Yeah.
That were in the commercials. And so you would have those and you would have to set them out in the background and they would be giving them away, whatever. So I would put them in the background, like in like a relaxing pose or nothing crude, but just do silly
Not
poses.
Not one humping another or anything.
Right. So I'd do silly poses. Then I would text Sarah and be like, hey, turn it on. And look, I did that. It was like a fun thing because it's like, hey, look, the way I set this up, this is on TV now. It was just like a cool, fun thing to do. So I could see myself slipping stuff in the background to see if it's noticed. Yeah. I mean, there were a couple of times I was hiding behind a piece of the set and like I would just stick my hand out and go like that as like there was a wide shot or like when the jib was shooting a model, I'd be like to see if I could just, anyway, see if anyone would notice.
Yeah.
And sometimes they
Seems
did,
like
sometimes
no.
they didn't. Well, sometimes they did because one time I only did the hand thing once and my hand like way more of my arm was visible than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They're like, Sean, get out of there. Don't do that again. I'm like, okay, all right. And the only other times I was on TV were complete accidents or it was intentional. Like, hey, you be out there for this thing. So,
like, what would they have you out there for?
The most common was when they were selling this air mattress. Their whole gimmick that they wanted to try to show how like strong it was or how powerful maybe the pump that filled it was you could have a bunch of people sitting on it while it's deflated, and then they would inflate it on air, and we would just be sitting on it while it filled up. So there's always a host and a guest, and they were sitting in the front. Then they needed two people to sit in the back of it. And so sometimes if you're working that show or you're just busy doing something else and they just need an extra body out there, I was out there a few times. But I will say, you better be pretty comfortable with these people because it's gonna inflate not completely evenly at first, and so people lose their balance and you're kind of knocking into each other and stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
Example of when you accidentally got on the air.
Well, it'd be like they're about to cut to a shot and you're like trying to get around something. You're just trying to get out. Like if they're live over here and you're over here trying to set something up and they're about to cut to it and you don't quite get out of there in time, or the director doesn't see that you're actually still out there doing something, you could accidentally just they could catch you like as you're like running off, or
right.
There's a couple times like that where they accidentally cut to the wrong camera and you're just standing there and it's like stuff like that. Yeah. So stuff like that.
Fun.
Just humans making human mistakes, and sometimes you're on TV because of it. Or like the most common, I think, probably as far as accidentally being on air is if it's a jewelry show or any kind of show where the hosts are just at a table and they're just presenting products on the table. If you're going in to swap out what they were selling to what they are selling next,
right,
you might accidentally sneak in before it fully cuts to the product shot, like the pre-taped product spinning on a turntable shot.
Right.
So you might just like swoop in there accidentally, but too soon before they're cut. So things like that.
Yeah. It's a live show. It's hard to.
Yeah. There's going to be mistakes.
Hard to do sometimes.
Live show. The worst thing ever was one of my very first days.
Somebody got murdered.
No, I wish. No, this is much worse. No, I was brand new. It was third shift. I think it was like one of my first shows I ever did. There was this morning crew called Daybreak. Because shows, various random shows would be on at random times, and it wasn't always the same host doing like a watch show or a betting show. It's just people just come in like, oh, I'm doing these shows tonight. But the Daybreak crew was the same director, same producer, same two hosts every morning. It was sort of like it was just like the routine like that. And for some reason, I was very scared, intimidated by the Daybreak crew, and so I had to work this Daybreak show. And I was very nervous, and I had to swap out a necklace off of the female host, and it got so tangled up in her hair. Because a lot of times the hosts, they would like lift their hair up, so it's easy for you to undo a necklace and then put a new necklace on. But she was very like, her hair was usually just down, and she would like kind of lift it up a little bit, but you still had to like fight through it to get to the necklace. So either way, this necklace got so tangled up in her hair that I could not get it out. And they cut to a product shot so I could go in there and swap out the necklace. But I was out there what felt like dazed. I was just sweating out there, and I could not get this necklace moved. And the director's like yelling at me in my ear because they can't just hang on this product shot forever.
Right.
And I had to, this one visual there who had been there long before me, I'm like, please finish this show. Like, I can't. I think I eventually got the necklace swapped out, but I was just like, you go in, I can't do that anymore, this show. Finish it, please. So I bailed on the show. And yeah, that was the only time I ever like bailed on a show and said like, I can't do this.
One of your first ones.
Well, because some people are like, oh, this is too crazy. So yeah, it was one of my first shows, and it was the Daybreak thing. And yeah, it was my first, since it was my first Daybreak show, and these were the same people that always worked the Daybreak stuff, this was my first time working with any of these people.
Right. So
it was just all...
And they're just like, this incompetent piece of shit.
Kind of, right. It was like, get this idiot out of here. Like, we need to get someone who's not a moron.
You're just like, fine, and you just tear it out of her hair and run off stage real quick.
Yeah, I don't know.
You grab some scissors and just...
Oh, that would have been so much worse. Because they're, hosting their hair,
Yeah.
Well, Matt, we talked about some stuff.
We talked shop.
This technically qualifies as an episode, and
It does. It does.
I think we can all leave knowing that we've got a few more things that we could try to watch if we care to. So you're welcome, listeners. We've given you some things that you probably have already watched.
Have been out there for a while.
Yep. Well, Poker Face is pretty new.
Poker Face is new. Glass Onion's fairly new.
Fairly new.
Sherlock, not so much.
Not so much. Frasier.
Frasier's definitely.
News Radio, Seinfeld, Friends. None of these things are new. Cowboy Bebop, both the anime and the live action, not new.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the anime, people who enjoy that kind of thing, definitely watch that. It's one of my favorites, for sure. But the live action, skip it.
The British version of The Office.
Yeah.
The American
If you like
Office.
the American version of The Office, you might not like the British version because it's a very different type of humor, for sure.
That's a rare example of a show being popular in Britain and then America doing their own version of it and it actually doing well.
Yeah. So, that we know of. I think there's a lot of shows that America does that sometimes you don't even really realize it was done somewhere else first.
Probably.
I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but a lot of shows that America tries to do, they are awful. Like one example off the top of my head, The In-Betweeners, very popular British show. They did it in America and it was absolutely horrible. Same with Taskmaster. Though other parts of the world have very successful Taskmasters out there.
Oh, they do.
I think there's a New Zealand one that does well. There's a couple other ones that I can't think of exactly where they're done, but have done fairly well, actually.
Opposite of that, I think there have been a lot of different versions of Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Maybe not called that exactly, but they tried to do the same format as that show. And it's just that, maybe the people on the show didn't quite have the same crazy chemistry that these guys do.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things kind of floundered.
I think, a show like that, the reason it works is because those guys have been friends for so long. I think if you try to start that show somewhere else, if you don't get four people with that same kind of dynamic with each other, it just wouldn't work.
Right. Because half the show is just like their banter in the behind the scenes area where the three people that are watching the person out there doing the challenge. Half of it is just the stuff they do back there. Mm-hmm. And then the punishments they come up with are rooted in very personal things that they all know about each other, like Sal's and Mur's fears about things and stuff like that. And if you don't have that, it's not going to be a success.
Yeah, if you don't have that deep-rooted knowledge of a person's life that you've kind of cultivated this long-standing relationship with them, it doesn't work. I could do that kind of shit to you and a couple other our friends. If we had a 4-person group of something like that, we could definitely deep dive into each other's personal lives and be very mean to each other super easily. I mean, we do it all the time anyway.
Let's do it then. Let's just
do it
on
here.
Camera. Yeah, that's why this show is so successful.
We talk about each other's pasts and make fun of each other all the damn time.
And that's what makes this show great. Hey, everyone, you agree.
I mean, we're still here.
That's true.
Yeah. We haven't been canceled yet. This is,
Yep.
This is going to go forever.
We've
already knocked out a couple of years of this.
Yeah,
we're on year 3 right now. So
yeah, not to get too much in the weeds, but in my opinion, not to get too sappy and romantic. I just love you. No, we're heading toward 200 episodes way faster than we were toward 100. That's what I think. We're already this is 121.
I think it just feels, I think it feels faster when you stop kind of paying attention to it. Yeah. I think, because it took us a while to get to, it felt like it took a long time to get to 100, but once it started getting nearer to 100, it felt like, because we were focusing on it so much, it slowed down. But now it's 100 was a couple months back now, for sure. History. Jesus. When did that one release at this point? It's holy crap, that was forever ago already.
And you guys never let us rest. You're always like, what's the next new thing? Give us more. Give us new. We can't rest on previous episodes and say, hey, wasn't that great? Just enjoy that for a while, and then we'll eventually do something else. You guys are insatiable.
That's on us at this point. That's on us if we ever wanted to drop back and do every other week or once a month episodes.
You're insatiable, listeners. I dare you to be satied.
But if they want something different from us, Sean, they need to express that. Otherwise, they're going to continue to get the same old Matt and Sean every week, and the only content they're getting is the content that we give them.
Well, and I think that's what keeps them coming back for more. It has to be.
It must be, because nobody's saying
they wouldn't
anything.
Be. Right. No one's telling us other. You know what? Maybe this is like an ignorance is bliss thing, but, we must be doing exactly what they want.
Yeah, no news is good news.
Yeah, that's the better thing to say.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's
news
more fitting
is good
in this
news.
situation.
Yeah, because people are much more willing to, like if you're writing a review, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're much more willing to go, oh, this was awful. I need to go on and let them know how awful this is. If no one's doing any reports, a good chance that means it's only good
It's
things.
like the same at a job. You only really hear about when you screw up at work. It's very rare that you hear like a random, other than like in a review, like randomly have somebody, a boss or something come up to you and be like, you know what? You've been doing really good around here lately.
Hey, guess what?
Yeah, good job. Instead, it's like, hey, you really screwed that up back there. You made a huge mistake. It cost us lots of money.
Well,
but you don't hear the good stuff until you go to a review, and then they're like, all right, well, you've been doing great around here, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, just, hit me up with that every once in a while. It just makes me feel good.
Yeah, we get those sort of canned emails. They're like, oh, we appreciate what you all do, and you guys, whatever. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I get it from my customer a lot.
Yeah?
My customer praises me a lot. They're like,
way more than...
You're doing great. You're doing great. We let your boss know all the time that you've been doing great. I'm like, all right. Cool.
I wish
not that my boss tells me I do good. I did something awesome every once in a while, but
yeah, but it's kind of like
you definitely hear about the bad stuff more often.
I wish my boss would, have relayed some of that to me at some point versus him hearing it from the customer. What are they like? We could tell your boss hasn't told you, but we really think.
Well, no, I mean it's very specific to what I do for the customer that they constantly would.
Oh, I get you.
Not like that. Not like that. Not like that.
3-round bursts.
Full circle.
Do you just not want this to end? See you next Tuesday.
I don't know. I have no idea. Bye.
Bye.
If you have a question, complaint, or threat for Sean or Matt, you can reach us on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at hsfamouspod, or you can email the show at highschoolfamous@gmail.com. No animals were pleasured during the making of this podcast, despite our best efforts. All hail our Lord and Savior.